I never thought I'd end up living in my hometown again after college, but life has a way of surprising you. Our city wasn't huge, about 30,000 people, but it was growing fast. I landed a job that had me splitting time between our main office downtown and traveling around to different branches. The company was expanding, and they needed someone to help build up presence in smaller cities. The arrangement worked well. I'd spend 2 weeks at headquarters, then a week back home at our local branch, followed by a week or two on the road visiting other locations. After doing this for a year, I decided to buy a house in my hometown. The prices were reasonable, and it made sense to have a base there since I was spending so much time in the area. That's when Vince, one of the regional managers, invited me to a party. We'd grown up in the same town but went to different schools. Since I started working at the company, we'd become good friends. He stopped by my office one Friday when I was catching up on paperwork after getting back from a business trip. "Hey, having a few people over tonight. Nothing fancy, just drinks and food. You should come," he said. I wasn't planning to do anything that evening, so I agreed. That's where I met her. She was a new hire at our local branch, and we clicked right away. Even though we'd gone to the same high school years ago, our paths had never crossed until that night. Things moved quickly after that. Our families got along great, and she seemed to bring out the best in me. Her parents were particularly happy. They told me she'd struggled with relationships before and dealt with some tough times. After 2 years of dating, we decided to move in together at my place. The first year was perfect. But then things started changing. She'd cut our video calls short when I was traveling, saying she was busy. Neighbors mentioned seeing Vince's black sports car parked in the alley behind our house when I was away. I found clothes that weren't mine in our closet. Everything pointed to something being wrong, but she had explanations for it all. Vince would stop by to discuss work things, she said. The clothes were probably left by visiting relatives. I tried to ignore the signs, told myself I was being paranoid. But that feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. 6 months later, I wrapped up a big contract ahead of schedule. Instead of staying the extra days, I booked an early flight home, thinking I'd surprise her. I drove down the back alley to our house, planning to sneak in through the rear entrance. That's when I saw it, Vince's car blocking our back gate. The tall privacy hedge I'd planted years ago had hidden the house from the alley, which is probably why they felt safe. I sat there for a minute, confused, telling myself there had to be an explanation. But as I walked toward the house and looked through the kitchen window, I saw something that stopped me cold. I won't describe what I saw, but it confirmed every suspicion I'd had. My girlfriend and my friend in my house. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I just turned around and left before they noticed me. I drove around aimlessly for hours, moving from sadness to anger and back again. I'm not a violent person, never have been, but I wanted them to hurt like I was hurting. That's when I started forming a plan. First, I needed to confirm what I'd seen. I parked where I could see Vince's car, but stayed far enough away that they wouldn't notice me. Then I called her phone. I watched through the window as they both froze when my name appeared on her screen. She let it ring out. I called again, and this time she answered. "Hey, I'm about 15 minutes from home," I said, keeping my voice casual. "Didn't want to startle you when I walk in." She tried to sound happy, but I could hear the panic in her voice. The call ended quickly. She said she needed to get changed. I watched as Vince rushed out, barely dressed, and sped away in his car. That night, I acted normal, but I couldn't sleep. I sat in my home office, thinking about what to do next. My mom always said to let karma handle things, but this time, I decided karma needed some help. I knew about Vince's secret, something I discovered by accident months ago when I walked into his office without knocking and caught him with cocaine. I pretended not to notice when he scrambled to hide it. Our company had strict policies about drugs, and I'd kept quiet to protect him. Now that knowledge would come in handy. A few weeks after catching them together, I invited some friends over, including Vince. I made sure he drank plenty, then insisted he stay the night instead of driving home. Once he was passed out, I took his office keys and drove to our branch. I knew exactly where to look. His desk drawer had a false bottom. I'd seen him accessing it before. What I found was way worse than I expected. It wasn't just cocaine. He had all kinds of hard drugs stashed there. I took photos of everything, put it back exactly as I found it, and installed a tiny camera I'd bought online above his office door. My next move involved our house. My girlfriend had always refused when I suggested installing security cameras, claiming she was worried about hackers. Now I understood why. So I created an opportunity. I staged a break-in by smashing our back door's window pane while she was home alone. Everything played out perfectly. My mom, who was visiting that day, found the broken door and called the police. My girlfriend called me in tears. I was away on business when it happened, so I told her to stay with my parents until I got back. Then I arranged for a security company to install cameras and an alarm system. When I returned home, I played the concerned boyfriend perfectly. The security company showed us how everything worked, including how to turn off recording for private moments, something my girlfriend was very interested in learning. What she didn't know was that I'd set up email notifications to tell me whenever the cameras were turned off. I also installed my own hidden cameras throughout the house. I checked with some legal experts online about our living situation. Since we weren't legally considered a domestic partnership, and I paid all the bills, she had no claim to my property. Still, I had a lawyer draft some documents just to be safe. Then came the perfect opportunity. My boss offered me a promotion at our city headquarters. The job would mean less traveling and better pay. It would take about 6 weeks for the transfer to go through, plenty of time to gather evidence. I went to Vince and asked him to approve a week's vacation for my girlfriend. I told him I was planning to propose and wanted to send her on a spa trip with friends first. He got excited and hugged me, probably feeling guilty about sleeping with my girlfriend behind my back. I hugged him back, knowing what was coming. That night, I told her I'd booked her and 2 friends at a tropical resort for a week. I said I'd be busy in the city that week preparing for an important client meeting. What I didn't tell her was that I'd also taken 2 weeks off to mentally prepare for what was about to happen. While she was away, I monitored the hidden cameras. Sure enough, Vince came over regularly. They clearly thought they were being clever by avoiding the security cameras and using our bedroom instead. But my hidden cameras caught everything. On the Sunday before she was due back, I put my plan into action. I drove by our house and saw Vince's car in the usual spot. I called the police anonymously, reporting suspicious activity, someone in a car matching Vince's description, possibly dealing drugs. Then I sent all the videos of him doing drugs in his office to his boss from a new email address. Just to make things interesting, I called my girlfriend and told her I was 10 minutes away. The panic that followed was exactly what I'd hoped for. Vince rushed out to his car, probably breaking several speed limits. A police car that had been waiting nearby started chasing him immediately. I acted normal when I got home. She went to sleep, but I stayed up, knowing everything was about to change. The next morning, she left for her spa trip with her friends. As soon as she was gone, I called Marcus, a friend who owns a moving company. I apologized for the short notice, but asked if he could pack up my house that Friday. He agreed and said he'd handle moving some boxes to a storage unit as well. Later that day, the police called. They wanted to know if I knew anything about Vince's involvement with drugs. I pretended to be shocked. They'd caught him with a large amount of illegal substances in his car. In a small town like ours, news travels fast. By evening, everyone knew about Vince's arrest, and he'd already been fired. That night, I visited both our parents. I told them what had happened, well, most of it, and explained that I was moving back to the city for my promotion. They were upset I hadn't told them sooner, but understood why I handled it the way I did. They didn't fully agree with my plan to disappear on her, but they supported me. The next few days were busy. I arranged for cleaners, put the house up for rent, and handled paperwork at the office. Before leaving town, I stopped at Riley's house. Riley had been my girlfriend's best friend since childhood, and she was the only other person who knew the full story. Without her help, I couldn't have organized everything so quickly. I gave Riley a large envelope containing all the evidence of the cheating, plus legal documents from my lawyer stating that my girlfriend couldn't contact me. I also included instructions about how she could access her belongings in the storage unit I'd rented. Then I drove to the city and started my new life. On Sunday morning, my phone exploded with messages and missed calls. My girlfriend had come home early after hearing rumors about Vince, only to find an empty house with a for rent sign out front. She tried my parents, but they shut the door in her face. She called everyone until finally reaching Riley, who gave her the envelope. The angry messages started pouring in after that. She accused me of setting up Vince, of being deceitful, of ruining their lives. But I didn't care anymore. I'd given them exactly what they deserved. Now, 6 weeks later, I'm settled into my new position at headquarters. The promotion came with a nice raise, and I found a great apartment in the city. Sometimes I think about how everything played out, not with regret, but with a sense of satisfaction. They thought they were being clever, but in the end, their actions caught up with them. I learned something important through all this. Karma might work in mysterious ways, but sometimes it needs a little push in the right direction. Vince lost his job and reputation, facing serious drug charges. My ex-girlfriend lost her comfortable life and her lover in one fell swoop. And me? I got a fresh start and the satisfaction of knowing I handle things my way. No violence, no drama, just careful planning and perfect timing. The funny thing is, I actually feel grateful now. If I hadn't caught them that night, I might have wasted years of my life with someone who didn't deserve my trust. Instead, I'm free to start over, and this time, I'll be smarter about who I let into my life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.